Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Haney versus Prograis fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Haney is 30-0 with 15 KOs, and Prograis is 29-1 with 24 KOs. This fight is for the WBC World Super Lightweight title. Haney's last fight was a win via split decision. Via unanimous decision split decision versus Lomachenko, and Prograis' last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Zorrilla. Haney is moving up in weight for this fight. Both of them are coming off of more lackluster performances from what we're used to from them. Prograis is 34 and Haney is 25. Prograis is a southpaw. Prograis' loss came via majority decision versus Taylor in 2019. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying there, of course, this for the WBC World Super Lightweight title. So, like I mentioned, Haney is moving up in weight, and so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays a factor. I mean, there's not really much of a height difference or anything like that, so I don't think that aspect is going to play much of a difference. But it's going to be interesting to see how Haney deals with the power and the added kind of weight behind shots. And I mean, to go in against somebody like Prograis for a first fight at this weight category is a very tough test, and I respect Haney for doing it and for taking the fight, and it's good to see the fights that the people want to be made are being made, just top level fights and the best fighting the best, which is always nice to see. Like I mentioned, both their last fights were a bit more lackluster. I mean, people were even saying that Lomachenko won versus Haney in that last fight and it was a robbery of some kind, and I mean, I personally thought it could have gone to Loma, but I mean, I'm never realistically going to call a fight a robbery unless, like I always say, it's a clear and obvious thing. And it was close. It was a very close fight. I feel like I said, it could have gone either way. I was leaning more towards Loma, but of course, Haney managed to get the decision. But I mean, Loma's an amazingly good operator, but Prograis is a completely different fighter to that of Loma, so it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with a different fighter here in Prograis. And Prograis is coming off a difficult fight versus Zorrilla, one where he got dropped, but it didn't get counted, even though it probably should have. But he also dropped Zorrilla, but then throughout the rest of the fight he seemed to struggle to cut off the ring, seemed to struggle to catch him, and seems to struggle to really kind of leave much of a dent otherwise, which is what we're not too used to from Prograis, as he's normally used to seeing these big stoppages and seeing him being able to get opponents out of there when they're hurt and being able to be ruthless and really catching them. But Zorrilla, I don't know, he evaded him and did well, and I mean, we spoke to him afterwards, and you know, it was a good chat on the channel. I would recommend watching that interview if you have not done so already. Of course, Prograis is the older fighter by quite a big margin, and so arguably Haney's not in his prime yet, but I mean, you can always have early primes and that, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see if age plays a factor, youthfulness, possible speed differences, stuff like that. Of course, Prograis is the only one to have a loss on his record, but that was a very close fight versus Taylor, and since then Prograis has improved very much so, arguably become a little bit more technical, kind of slowed down his game a bit, become a bit more patient, set up his shots better, and gone away from the aspect of just being a reckless brawler that just wants to get everybody out of there. Not saying he doesn't sometimes resort to that, but he doesn't necessarily rely on it as much anymore because he's now experienced that it doesn't always work, and he has improved as a fighter since that defeat. Also on this card is Paro versus Love for the WBO Global Super Lightweight title, in which I think Paro will win via unanimous decision. I don't know how much I rate Love as a fighter. He's a very good fighter, but I think Paro, I like it. I'm liking the way that Paro's been fighting recently, and I think Paro's going to come in with the more confidence, and I think he's going to get a unanimous decision, not a stoppage, but a unanimous decision victory. And then also on this card is Bridges versus Yoshida for the vacant IBF World Bantamweight title, in which I think Bridges will win via TKO in round 5. I mean, Yoshida's coming on very short notice. She's lost to lesser opponents. I think this fight is to just get back going off the injury, and so if she is there's still same Bridges coming off the injury, then I think we'll see a destructive performance and an easy TKO victory. Obviously, I don't go into too much detail into these undercard fights because I just don't really have time to do full length video predictions on them, but I thought I'd mention both of them on this. So going back to the main event though, Haney as a fighter, I'm going to speak about both of them as fighters, but there's a lot to mention because of course they're both very skilled, highly rated fighters. So Haney, like I said, he's a very skilled, calculated, high IQ boxer with great head movement. He's very good at being at the range that he wants to be at and dictating the fight from the range that he wants to be at. He's got very good footwork. He will outwork you. He frustrates opponents. He can flip momentum. He makes adjustments. He counters well. He resets well. He changes levels. He's disciplined. He's got a consistent jab, and he finds gaps very well. Like I said, a very good, well-rounded boxer. Arguably one of the best well-rounded boxers around at the moment. People compare him to that of a Floyd Mayweather level, and of course that means you have to be up there with the best, and it means you skillful wise are one of the best. And he's very skillful. Like I said, he's gonna frustrate opponents. That could frustrate Prograis. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, sorry if I'm not, but he's shown in the past, and he showed in that last fight versus Zarria, that Prograis can get frustrated if things aren't going his way, and so you'd have to see that Haney kind of can go into that, and he can just have fights. Like I said, he's very disciplined, where he can just go throughout a whole fight and just really stick to a game plan and just be comfortable and just outwork him, but just not do too much and not make any silly mistakes or try and force the fight too much, and just know that you can outbox them. And that's something which a lot of fighters don't have, that ability to just know that you can just outclass an opponent. Like I said, changes levels very well, very good shot variety. When I say make adjustments, I mean he's been hurt in fights. That's something I'm going to mention. He's been hurt in fights, but he's managed to come back into next rounds and always make adjustments and kind of come out as a bit of a different fighter in between rounds, and then, like I said, make adjustments and manage to get the victory. And he's very good at that. And even if he does get hurt or is in a position possibly where he doesn't want to be, if he is on the inside, he's very good at kind of clenching on, resetting, getting back to his work, and then going from there. And that is something again which adds to the IQ, adds to the calculated aspect, and it's not something that many fighters can do well. And that does, like I mentioned, flip momentum. And with the great footwork, the great movement, he's also hard to catch. And against somebody like Prograis, who's not going to have this crazily good movement and struggled against Zarria when he was moving around him, that's going to be interesting to see if that plays a factor. The negatives about him, the power. I mean, people are always going to mention it. The power, it's not as nowhere near as what you'd say Prograis is. And moving up in weight, how's that going to play a factor? Is he going to struggle against the power and him just lacking not enough? Is his speed going to slow down? Is he going to gain more power? We're going to have to wait and see. But it seems like the power is always a certain aspect which sometimes can stop him from getting opponents out of there. Like I mentioned, he's been hurt in fights, and I mean the worst one was it was against Linares. And he got kind of saved by the bell there, and so he's been hurt and against not as powerful opponents, and so like I said, coming up in weight, is that going to play a factor? When he stands and trades, sometimes I don't think he's the most comfortable doing that. He can sometimes cruise through rounds when things are going too easy for him and then lose rounds from doing that. He can struggle against southpaws a bit at times. I mean, Loma, a very, very skilled southpaw, was landing big shots on him at times, and like I say, he can struggle against it at points. He can struggle against kind of physical pressure. Lomachenko was putting on a lot of physical pressure. You don't normally see that from him, but he was applying a lot of physical pressure in that fight, and he was pushing Haney back and up against the ropes, and Haney didn't really look too comfortable there and struggled at the most of the times when he was up against the ropes and really didn't look like he wanted to be there. And at points he sometimes crosses his feet if he's in close a little bit too much and a little bit uncomfortable. And like I said, sometimes fighting on the inside, it's not his best. He can do it very well, but sometimes if it's an aggressive physical fight on the inside, then he can struggle a little bit. But to speak about Prograis, so he's got that power, he's got that ability to just kind of land that shot that can get you out of there and drop you, and that's always a nice factor to have, and also a big opponent and big part of an opponent's game. He is willing to take risks. Sometimes that's a bad thing, sometimes it's a good thing, but to get these stoppages you kind of have to be willing to take risks, and he's definitely willing to take the necessary risks, and sometimes maybe a little bit less necessary at times. He's very explosive, he won't be bullied, he wants to control the pace. That's going to be interesting to see if he can control the pace against Haney, or if you can let Haney get into a groove, then he's very difficult to to slow down, and so it's going to be interesting to see who's controlling the pace, who's being the one pushing the tempo. He's willing to walk you down. He's a pressure fighter, pressure puncher. He knows how to close out the fight. Like I mentioned, he struggled a little bit in that last fight, but he is very experienced and knows how to do it. He has got awkward, kind of jittery movements, which can look at points maybe a little bit less technical at times, but it very much sets up his shots and he can work off of that, and it is impressive. And like I said, he's becoming a bit more patient, a bit more efficient with his work, and that's come from the defeat, and he's been improving, and I think this fight could be maybe at one of the best points in his career, as I think everybody has off nights, and so I think that Zarya one wasn't off night, but he's still been looking very good as of recent. He finds angles well, he's got very good timing, he imposes his size. Is that going to play a factor? He plans out his shots well, he changes levels well, he controls the tempo, like I said, controls the pace, controls the tempo. Is that going to be something to see who's going to be doing that? Like I mentioned, his head movement, it's improving. Yeah, like I said at the start, he kind of came in a bit recklessly when he was fighting at the start and kind of building himself up at the start. But head movement's improving. He hasn't really got loads of defensive movement, lateral wise, but his head movement's improving, and he's aggressive when he wants to be, and he can be calculated aggression when he wants to be. Negatives about him: he can struggle against a lot of movement. Like I said, he struggled to cut off the ring, catches a rear, and Haney's going to have even more movement and be changing the angles, moving around him, and so is that going to play an additional big role for Haney? He can be a bit flat-footed at times, so he's not going to be, like I said, moving laterally defensive-wise. He's going to get hit. He's very much open to get hit. He's definitely there to get hit, and he sometimes can overcommit as well, and so that's going to, of course, be something which a very good counterpuncher as Haney is can capitalise on. He's been hurt in fights himself. I mean, he got dropped against Zarya. It didn't get counted, but he can recover quite well, and I think he has got a good chin, but he has been hurt at times, and so if he isn't really respecting Haney's power and just walking onto every shot, which he often does, he's willing to take one to then give one, but if he's just not respecting his power at all, he definitely could get caught with a shot coming in. He can struggle a little bit against orthodox fighters at times. It seems like he kind of doesn't really know how to evade the kind of right hand at points, and that's a lot of opponents are orthodox, and so if he's struggling against maybe possible lower level orthodox fighters at times, then the higher level ones possibly could be in the same case. He is, in my opinion, of course, the less technical out of the two, and so that boxing ability wise, he's not as high of that as what Haney is, and like I said, he can become frustrated, and if he becomes frustrated, he can lose his discipline and lose his composure a bit, and Haney could definitely play upon that. Haney is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Prograis will win via a unanimous decision. I think this is going to be a great fight. I think Prograis could drop Haney once, twice. I think Haney could find successes in rounds as well, especially that of early rounds, but I think Prograis is going to land big shots, and is inevitably going to land, and he's going to impose his size, impose his figure, and Haney is proven that he can struggle against that a bit now, and I think he'll get flashbacks of that of the Lomachenko fight, but then he's going to get hit with Prograis' power, and when he gets hit with that, I think he could get dropped. But I think Haney's going to be tough enough and have that will enough to be able to get through the fight. But I think Prograis will win via unanimous decision. It would be a bit of an upset on paper, but I believe that he can do it, and Haney, I think he could struggle at this weight class, to be honest. But who he could go on to fight next, I mean, obviously there'll be a rematch possibly available. It wouldn't surprise me if it's in the clause, but that could be a possibility. Otherwise, you see Garcia, he's fighting seemingly at super lightweight now, so that could be a fight. Romero versus Davis is seemingly going to happen if Davis gets through Barroso, so the winner of that could make for a big fight. Or Paro versus Love, of course that's on the undercard. I mean, Prograis was meant to fight Paro at one point, but Paro had to pull out because of injury, so that could be another fight to be made. There's also people like Catril as well. There's quite a lot of fights to be made. I think the super lightweight division is becoming that of a great division at the moment, and with other fighters moving up and things like that, I think it is becoming a great division. It's becoming a stacked division, and there's calling out for loads of big fights, and I think this is the first of many in the way of big fights. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did need like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.